Okay, so these are the notes that are on the front page of Schoology, and it's got the two very last things that are on your test. We're just kind of barely talking about human population, just touching the surface on that. This graph shows you three things. It shows you birth rate, death rate, and human population. So it helps you understand the effect that the changing birth and death rate have on the overall population. So in step 1 up here, okay, you guys don't have to write on yours. I'm just underlining so you can see. All right, your birth rate and your death rate your birth rate and your death rate are both really high. Okay, and the overall result is that your population size stays low. Yes, a lot of people are being born, but a lot of people are also dying. So that's what's happening in your first circle here. Okay, and then when you move into the second phase, what's dropped? Can you guys tell? Up here, birth rate has stayed high, but what dropped? What is that? That's death rate. Okay, so as a result, you have your other line here that represents population growth. That's growing exponentially because your birth rate stayed high and your death rate dropped. And again, once the population catches up to what's happening with the death rate being lowered, then you get the third stage where birth and death rate are about equal. Your population size stays high, but it stays steady. It levels off. Okay, the reason it's not going to go back down is that would take a big increase in death rate. So it doesn't go back down. You still have all those people that you gained in the second stage, but it levels off. Okay, so those are the three stages. We're going to write the definitions for those three stages right here. Stage 1 is done for you. In stage 1, the birth rate and the death rate are equally high. In stage 2, which one falls? Birth rate or death rate? Death rate, because there's better sanitation, better technology, so birth rate remains the same. Birth rate remains high. Death rate drops. And down at the bottom, it's asking you to represent that as a bar graph. So notice in stage 1, birth rate and death rate are high. In this, my birth rate should remain high. So I'm going to try to draw it the same level. Oops, that's a little bit of a crooked bar. But there's my birth rate. It's going to remain high. And my death rate dropped. So I'm going to draw my death rate as a much lower bar. And then remember in stage 3, what's happening is the birth rate drops and it kind of meets the death rate. So they're going to be both approximately the same, and that causes my population overall to just remain stable. The population doesn't get smaller, but it's not growing exponentially anymore. It stays stable. Okay, now the other thing you need to understand is we've talked about birth rate and death rate, but what effect does that have on the overall growth? Is stage 1 going to be a high growth rate or a low growth rate? Stage 1, high or low? A lot of people are being born, but a lot of people are dying too. So that's going to be a low growth. This is a low growth situation. Okay, what happens in the middle? You have a bunch of people being born still. Birth rate is high, but death rate drops. So in stage 2, you have a period of high growth. exponential growth. All right, and then in stage 3, you're back to low growth. The population has stabilized. So those are 3 stages of the demographic transition, and you need to be able to recognize the characteristics of each. So again, in the beginning, high birth, high death, and as a result, your overall growth is low. Stage 2, birth rate stays high, but conditions have improved, so my death rate drops. That causes high growth, exponential growth. And then in stage 3, the birth rate drops too, and that brings you back to a low growth. Your population is still quite large, but it's staying stable. And then the last thing that's going to be on your test are your population pyramids, like I showed you at the beginning of class. At the base, you have individuals being born, and at the top, those are your older individuals. So individuals will be removed from the top. What you need to be able to do is look at a pyramid and tell me about that country. Is that country growing quickly, slowly? Is there zero growth? Is it stable? Okay, so looking at this one is rapid growth because your red is your pre-reproductive years. Okay, so these are individuals who will have children in the future. Okay, and that base is so much wider than what the population currently is. That tells you that this population is going to grow really quickly. Whenever you have a pyramid shape and the base is much wider than the top, what that means is more people are entering the population, more people are being born than previously. You're going to have a higher birth rate than death rate. Slow growth, you guys can see it's still a pyramid shape, but the base is not as wide. You know it's growing because the base is wider than the top, but it's not as dramatic as in rapid growth. And then zero growth is what they call the skyscraper shape, because if you look, they're pretty much equal. Every age is about the same. Every age bracket is about the same size. So what that means is the same number of people that are being born are dying. Okay, so there's zero growth. And then why is this one negative growth? Look at your top and your bottom. Why is that negative? What do you have less of? People being born or people dying? Yeah, there's less people being born, so that is negative growth. Which of these have reached demographic transition? 1, 2, 3, or 4. And there can be more than one. There is more than one. Which 2 have reached? 4 has reached demographic transition, and 3 because it's stable. All right, so that's how human populations grow. And the best way to practice this is for you guys to play Kahoot.